I think you did a great job explaining the ontological argument and discussing its limitations. I do think that you might could have addressed the concept of a perfect being a little more, just because that idea that kind of necessarily requires God's existence. Because a perfect being, by definition of perfection, it must exist. Therefore, since a perfect being is not an impossibility, such a perfect being must exist. And that's the second part of the cosmological argument, and I thought you might could have addressed that a little bit more. But overall, I really enjoyed your discussion, and I thought that you kind of addressed its limitations pretty well. I really liked your thought about how everything that we can think of that doesn't exist, like unicorns and superpowers and all that kind of stuff, are comprised of things that actually do exist. I thought that was a really good, insightful point. That everything we think of is inspired by things that we know, and so the fact that we can think of God, there are things in our life that cause us to think of God, components in our own lives and what we experience that allow us to think and conceive of God. And so I like that idea, the argument from reverse, and how that we can argue basically from God's existence down into the fact, because we can think of God, that means that there are things that make us think of God, and there are components of reality that are a part of God that we can conceive of, and I like that. But as far as the ontological argument not being useful for a conversation with an atheist or a skeptic, I think I disagree. Because while I do agree that the argument alone is not necessarily convincing, I think combining it with other arguments like the cosmological, teleological, and moral arguments make it exceedingly more compelling, because there are these other evidences that a God exists, and then when you kind of bring into it the really rational idea that because we can conceive of God, he exists, I think it makes it a little more convincing. So on its own, yeah, I'd agree. But I think if we combine it with others, then it becomes a lot more effective. But overall, I really thought you articulated your points well and really put a lot of thought into your answer.